There's been worse things that have happened in Cleveland since Kareem Hunt has shown up, but including Johnny Manziel. There's a good transition.
That's good.
The Netflix documentary Untold Johnny Football came out last week, and holy shit, is it awesome. I watched this last week. You watched it over the weekend, and you sent me a text just like, we need to talk about this. So what do you want to talk about?
Well, was it a documentary or was it more like a highlight reel of his time at Texas A&M? Because
was both.
Because that was like 45 minutes of the documentary, and then the other 15 minutes were like, oh yeah, he went.
He did drugs.
Oh yeah, he went to the Browns. Oh yeah, he did drugs. Oh yeah, he got in an domestic dispute with his girlfriend or whatever. He's good now. He's partying. It was weird. He clearly was paid for it. I think it's pretty obvious because he's going around like promoting. He went around to like he went to McAfee, he went to Levitard, he went to a bunch of everywhere to like promote it. You probably don't do that if like you didn't get any money for it. And it seemed like, it just seemed like they just glossed over his problems. I will say this: in college, when he was in college, I didn't give a fuck what he did. He's a college kid, like any kid, any person who was in college, almost like at his age, was doing the same thing, but he was just in the spotlight. And I also don't care that he fucked over the NCAA because they were making so much money off of him, and he's like, cool, I'm making like 30 grand off of autographs. Give me a break. So I don't care about that. But afterwards, when he was kind of like, I didn't watch film, I didn't really care, I just wanted to party. It's like, all right, at some point, like, you gotta like kind of look in the mirror and like, is this what you want to do? Obviously it wasn't. So I don't know. I still root for the guy. I wanted the Vikings to draft him. And I think
you weren't alone.
No. When they drafted Anthony Barr, everyone was like, no. I think that whole draft party, I remember like seeing video from it.
I've told you the story about Anthony Barr that I have, right?
I don't know about that.
So I had a friend over for that pick, and he
I think Manziel so. Yeah.
So for those who hadn't heard it, basically they took Anthony Barr and he wasn't at the draft, and my friend started screaming at the top of his lungs, "He's not at the draft. What is this?" So that's like a joke now. If somebody's not at the draft, like when Justin Jefferson got taken, I texted him, "Man, he's not even at the draft," even though nobody was at the draft.
And you know who Johnny Manziel's first quarterbacks coach was, right?
Kevin O'Connell.
It was. You see his little brief cameo during the pro day or whatever, and his agent. Yeah, he was agent. What a fucking jackass! That's Kyler Murray's agent.
Oh.
Yeah, it's very obvious. I don't know. He landed with the worst agent. He had the worst like people around him, like friends wise. He landed with one of the worst NFL franchises. So like, he didn't have a lot going for him once he left Texas A&M. He was pretty much set up to fail, but he also contributed to that as well with his drug use and drinking and all that. But I would like to think that if he landed with Mike Zimmer in Minnesota in what was this, 2014? I'd like to think he had I'm not going to go out and say he would have succeeded and done well in the NFL and stayed in the NFL longer than 2 years. But I would like to think that he would have a better shot at remaining in the NFL, or at least having some sort of career in the NFL. Because Mike Zimmer, like, players liked him because he held them accountable. And at the end of his tenure, it got a little, he was lashing out at people and everything. But in the beginning, there were a lot of Vikings players who said something similar to, "I would run through a wall for Mike Zimmer," and that was said by multiple players, like Kyle Rudolph, Adam Thielen, Stefan. I don't know if Dick said it.
No, I'd run all the way to Buffalo for Mike Zimmer.
Chad Greenway, but Brian Robinson, like a lot of these guys that were like, he may be hard on you, but it's for a reason because he thinks you have more than you're, putting out or offering. So I would like to think that Johnny Manziel would have had a better shot with the Vikings. Not saying he would have succeeded, but he would have had a better shot in the NFL if he landed with the Vikings than with the Browns.
Now, I think you've been reading my articles and now you're just saying them verbatim on air. Like, come on, man. Like, call a spade
Did you write about
here.
it? I didn't even see it.
I did write about it for Zone
Okay.
Coverage, which you can go check out at zonecoverage.com.
Yeah, go check it
I
out.
know this. And go check out all the stuff at thevikingage.com, obviously, because we have great content, which we'll advertise here in just a little bit. But I loved it because this was like injecting a football into my neck, just with all the high school highlights and like all of Manziel's stories. Like that's what I loved so much about it. You said it was like 45 minutes. And I mean, that's probably why I like the documentary. And you mentioned it was kind of like swept on the rug and like, oh yeah, you did drugs and like party. But hey, check out Johnny's highlights, Johnny football, man. It's awesome. And like you look at, here was my counterpoint with all the Mike Zimmer stuff, because I agree with you. If you get a coach like Mike Zimmer with Johnny Manziel, maybe he kind of pushes him a little bit. Maybe he goes, hey, you have a great opportunity here. Like, I know you got screwed over in college, but like you're getting paid now. Like you have a chance to make a lot of money here and be the quarterback. Plus that locker room could have definitely elevated him a lot more than Cleveland, because I don't think anybody was happy in Cleveland. That being said, I think Manziel was just broken at that point with all of the stuff that had happened with his high school friend, with the autograph thing, which is such a big scandal. Like, think about it now. And I texted you this.
Like
how much money would Johnny Manziel had made if he had NIL? Like he would have stayed all 4 years in college. Just like I'm gonna make more money. Like, people talk about like WNBA right now. Paige Beckers is a Minnesota native, and she's like the next big thing in women's basketball. And he was like, oh, why don't you go pro to the WNBA? She's like, I'm going to make more money on this Hy-Vee NIL deal than, with the Lynx or whatever. Like NIL is for real because there's no legislation behind it. And there's not, I mean, it's basically turning into like Major League Baseball where like the Yankees just throw $500 million at Shohei Ohtani and they get him. That's kind of the direction they're heading with college sports right now. But he's right. Like Texas A&M made a bunch of money off of him. Adidas,
they were selling his jerseys.
Everybody. Yeah. Everybody made money off it. And Cliff Kingsbury used him as a stepping stone, basically, because he had Manziel. Then he goes over to, which, by the way, that coaching staff with Kevin Sumlin and Cliff Kingsbury, the most laid back thing ever. And like you said, I don't really care if a guy gets busted with a fake ID or whatever like that. It's not ideal, but it's not like, oh my God, you should be reprimanded for that. Why do you have a fake ID as a 19-year-old?
That's kind of the mentality Kingsbury said he kind of had. He was like, sometimes, you just gotta let Johnny be Johnny.
Yeah.
And
and him showing up hungover to the Mississippi State walkthrough,
like and sweating
vodka. You better play your ass off.
Yeah, and he did. But it's a lot easier to do that in college, than the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, in the NFL, you don't have the luxury that he had at college, where it was go beat Alabama and then go party with a whole bunch of co-eds or whatever. Right, in the NFL, you have to watch film, you have to do all that stuff, and like, him too. At that point, he was probably just like, I am so done and burned out on football. Like, I don't want to play anymore. And I think the same problems would have happened in Minnesota, where he would have been the face of the franchise. He would have been anointed the savior. And
he would have loved Chris Thomas.
Chris Thomas and Johnny Manziel interviews.
That's I called Johnny Manziel, but he hung up on me and didn't respond.
Yeah.
So many of those tweets.
And of course, too, he wound up, he said in the doc that he wound up, trying to commit suicide. So, I mean, I think it was more than
that kind of like just glossed over.
Point. Yeah, it was just like,
that's kind of,
well, I committed suicide, and then, here's him golfing with his dad.
And that seems kind of big, that you bought a gun with the purpose to shoot yourself and it didn't work. But I just don't think he was ever had the mentality to be that big of like a celebrity because he was massive. Like it was more than just sports. Like he was like TMZ level, like follow you everywhere you go celebrity. Now you know, he liked it when he was in college because he got to hang out with like Drake and all those athletes and everything, and it was awesome. But eventually, yeah, when you're struggling and people start following you, asking you know like what's going on at like some of your worst moments, that's when you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he even said like, I think it was after they beat Alabama. Um, After every game, he would go and like find his parents, um, and he couldn't find them because there were just so many people like wanting his autograph and celebrating and stuff. And his mom said like he had like this big look of fear in his eye because he was just like, this is not fun because there's just so many people, and some people are built for the spotlight. Like Justin Jefferson, he's not like everyone look at me, but he can handle it. Um, you know, a lot of those guys, but not Aaron Rodgers, obviously. He just give him as much attention as you like over give him his attention. That's what he wants. Um, but yeah, I just don't think because if he was, I feel like after his career, we would have seen him, you know, maybe doing his own podcast or something, or like more in the public eye. But he's laid pretty low, and I think he likes it that way. Um, but yeah, it's weird how they were like he went to rehab and everything, and then the last scene is like him drinking a beer with like his dudes. It's like
Yeah, I
so
thought that they were like they had like the little like shotgun cork thing. Not,
yeah,
not that I'm judging him for like, I mean, if he can handle it, sure,
right. But
drink
it's
away.
like what
But
was
it is a
the
little weird. Yes.
what did doesn't seem like yeah, we don't know like if he does it every day or anything, but it was a
Johnny,
interesting
lay off the coke. Like, just
it
stick to
was
alcohol. Like,
all
come
those
on.
untold like documentaries are kind of weird. They seem like the Manti Te'o one, like there seemed like there's some stuff missing and like there's other ones too as well, but like I don't know. Like it seems like there's still more stuff that they could have dove deeper and they didn't really do. It was mostly about his time in college. Maybe that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like I learned a lot except for like him not reading the playbook at all and him attempting to commit suicide. Those are like the only things that were kind of new that came out of it. But yeah, I was a Money Manziel guy back in the day. I will admit, and the Vikings reportedly they
Well, and
they were pretty
that
high,
was
they were
the
pretty
other
high on Manziel.
that was the other weird thing. Is like they're saying all these teams did their homework, and I texted Cleveland. There is a Peter King report out there that said 6 teams wanted to trade up for 22 to go get Manziel. So, I mean, either Eric Burkhart was just you know, slamming the
Somewhere,
BlackBerry or whatever at that point, and I mean, he was gonna have his dad
dad had
fake a
fake a
heart
heart attack.
attack
Yeah, what the
to
fuck?
skip the scouting combine. Like, these agents,
If
man.
if my kid or if I had an agent that said that, I'd be like, all right, you're done. I'm gonna get someone else who can like
Right.
solve
Yeah.
this normally. I know it's not a normal job because you're dealing with millions of dollars in football and everything, but like that's not a good idea. That's
That's a little far. Let's dial it back a little bit and see what we can come up
it
with.